welcome to the Claw Studio here at the Royal Opera House in London. I'm Rebecca Jones and I couldn't be more delighted to be here to host this very special insight supported by Rolex. Tonight we're joined by the conductor, Sir Antonio Pappano, to celebrate his 22 years as music director here at the Royal Opera House. We're also joined by his long-term collaborator, the tenor, Jonas Kaufmann, to discuss, among many other things I can assure you, Andrea Chénier, Tony Pappano's last production here as music director. So, without further ado, please welcome Sir Antonio Pappano and Jonas Kaufmann.
Thank you. Hey there. Oh, gosh.
I think that welcome gives you a sense of how excited everyone is. I know you are knee-deep in rehearsals for Andrea Chénier. How is it going?
Well, it's going okay, I must say. You know, of course, at this point, I've done my orchestra alone rehearsals, and tomorrow I'll put the orchestra together with the singers for the first time. And that's always a funny moment. It's good for the singers. They can, you know, just really, really sing. But of course, you're concerned about that detail and that thing and that, and it's, you know, and yet the orchestra needs to get a feeling of the whole. Yeah. So there are so many things going on, all kind of contradictory. The idea is that we prepare then to go on stage and try to put it together.
Yeah. Yeah. And is it coming together for you, Jonas?
Well, we'll see. I mean, as Tony just said, no. I mean, you see, we are in a quite luxurious position in rehearsal-wise because we have some proper rehearsals here for this revival, But even here, you see, you have one of those zits, as Tony mentioned, and which is 2.5 hours long, and I think we have a little over 2 hours of music alone, minus 20 minutes of intermission. So, yeah, you can
do the math,
stop
yeah.
a lot,
yeah.
Put it mildly.
Yeah. Okay, so you're knee-deep in rehearsals, but I just want to turn the clock back to last week, Tony, because there was this special gala here last week to mark your time here as music director with some very starry guests, including Jonas and, of course, His Majesty the King. What did that mean to you? What was the evening like for you? Because you were working pretty hard in the pit, weren't you?
Yeah, some evening in honor of me, I was working like a dog. But no, there was, you know, first of all, I had no idea about all the videos and all the things that were being said. And that was very special. I mean, of course, it felt like, you know, it was everybody was expressing the details of an obituary, but it was very, very lovely, and the sort of genuine warmth of everybody and the generosity of all the singers. You know, I mean, everybody's busy and, you know, flying in and out, and, you know, when you think of Jonas, who's, you know, as you said, knee deep in rehearsals of Chénier, Jerry Finley 2 days before had sung Hans Sachs in Madrid in Die Meistersinger. Can you imagine? You know, and yet he agreed to fly in and do this, and Lisette and Eigel and all these different people, and that was very, very special. Sandra too, who's in the cast of Andrea Chénier, and that takes physical energy, but it also takes a generosity of spirit, a generosity of heart.
Yeah.
And to have been the target of that was very, very special, yeah. Indeed.
Jonas, did you need much persuading?
No, certainly not. You see, I know Tony for quite some time, and I know that how much he loves being in the spotlight and hear all those compliments. No, I mean, you know, well,
Yeah, get out of that one.
hopefully you heard the irony in my voice. No, and so to give just a little bit back of all the generosity and greatness that we've experienced alongside his baton is the least we could do. You see, I mean, and he's not out of this world. You see, he's not retiring for goods. I think he'll be around also in the future. Certainly, much less, unfortunately. Like all those good conductors, they seem to come to the point where they just quit opera and concentrate on concerts.
Oh, he's back for the Ring.
Yeah, you see. So, it's all right.
We haven't seen the back of him. I want to ask you a little bit about your working relationship, because I think it began here at Covent Garden in Carmen, was that?
No, actually, our relationship began when I was still in Brussels. It was my final production there, and Jonas came to do The Damnation of Faust. The very young Jonas Kaufmann was Faust in my final production there. Very interesting. After 10 years as music director, now he's in this final production here. Jonas is, I don't want to embarrass you now, but I'm just telling the truth. Jonas is very, very special in the opera world, because, not only because of the unique nature of his voice and his technique, but he's also such a cultivated linguist, so that gives him the freedom to be able to express himself fully in German, in French, and in Italian. And there's rarely been a singer who has had that skill. I mean, when I say express himself fully, I mean also in the pronunciation. So, you know, his Italian doesn't sound like a German, and his French neither. So that there's a...
That's supposed to be a compliment.
That is a compliment. And so the territory that he's covered, the artistic territory, the repertoire, has been vast.
Yeah.
I've been very, very fortunate to have Jonas here making his role debuts. Carmen here, his first Don José, I believe, your first Cavaradossi, your first Manon Lescaut des Grieux, your first Andrea Chénier, your first Otello.
Yeah.
Was there anything else in between?
Adriana Le Couvreur.
No, I didn't do that one.
Oh, shit!
No.
Oh, that's why.
No. But that's great. That you've chosen this house to make a lot of debuts. That's been fantastic.
And Jonas, actually, I just wanted to ask one question to Jonas, because I was very intrigued by something you once said about Tony. You said, we tick in the same way musically. And I wondered if you could explain to me what you meant by that.
Well, I hope I'm not wrong, you see. No, you see, you have the conductors that demand in such a way that you just have to follow the rules. And you have others that follow wherever you go. Neither of that is maybe ideal. But Tony is willing and capable in following you wherever you go. And therefore, it's very important to have people on stage that don't stretch this will of accompaniment by just overdoing it and being all over the place. And so I think it is wonderful for me, and hopefully also for Tony sometimes, to just make music alongside in a way that it pleases both in an almost perfect way, because you want to achieve the same thing. It's the taste, the musical taste is very similar, and that's what it is. See, of course you can follow everything. You can try to do this and try to do that, and manipulate your voice in order to fit the box. But I had never ever had this impression.
Well, because we're both also thinking of the rhythm of the language, the natural spontaneity of the language, and especially in Italian language, that is so important. Yeah. That the bar lines in music are not barriers, but they're, you know, like little hurdles to jump over and therefore you get the flair of the phrase. And since Jonas speaks very well the Italian language, that we're on the same wavelength. Yeah. You know, and that's a joy to have that. Yeah, that collaboration.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about your latest collaboration, Andrea Chénier, which is based on a real life, a poet, Andrea Chénier, during the French Revolution. Tony, you've conducted, I think, about 60 operas during your 22 years here. Why, of all the operas in all the world, have you chosen to say farewell with this one?
Well, this season I conducted Das Rheingold and Elektra. So there was no question that it had to be an Italian title. And I think it was a question of, you know, which opera hasn't been here for a while, which, you know, suits me. Jonas, we knew, had a period there. So, and look, I don't have to apologize in the sense that I love this opera. It's got a wonderful libretto, really terrific libretto by Illica, who worked so closely with Puccini. This opera was written, was first performed in 1896, as year of La Bohème and all that. It's a very fertile moment of Italian composers who, yes, were under the spell of Richard Wagner, Puccini among them, but certainly Giordano. And this area of the repertoire interests me because there are so many stylistic byroads that are traveled. One minute you hear music that is in a Rococo style, which is very in fashion. It happens in Adriana Lecouvreur, happens in Manon Lescaut of Puccini, happens in this, and you know, imitation of the 18th century. And I love that. Of course it's fake. But what's very interesting, Giordano uses it in a very ironic way, always. Even the gavotte in Act 1 has a tread that is so aristocratic and, you know, we're here to stay kind of thing. It's very menacing indeed. But that kind of thing, and then the schwung, the slancio, the swing of the melodies is really unique. Now, it's not verismo. It's not really verismo because it's not about ordinary people. We're talking about, yes, the rabble in revolutionary France, of course, but it's about the aristocracy being knocked down. In a way, it's kind of an operatic Gone with the Wind, if I may say so. Look, you know, the girl enters and you think she's Vivian Leigh, you know, when she comes in, and you know, she talks about, and in her big aria, she talks, and I looked back, and I saw the house burning down, and they killed my mother, and you know, these things remind me of that too. Yeah. So there are many things that the opera touches upon. The supposed bad guy, Gérard, is actually one of the most humane, shows himself to be one of the most humane, visionary characters. He dreams of a pantheon where the humanity, everybody's treated with dignity and kindness. Yeah. Jonas's character, Andrea Chénier, berates the aristocracy for not doing anything when they see that people are being treated so badly, even by the church, in his first aria. Also, what I love about this opera is that the monologues that Jonas's character has, that are visionary. He's a poet. Therefore, he's trying to illuminate when he sings, trying to give us a vision of a world that could be better. Also the way he talks about La France and this O Patria Mia.
Yeah,
you know.
I think we can now see why you wanted to conduct this opera.
But it's got
You
a lot
love
of
it.
things,
Yeah, no, I can see. And Jonas, you performed the part, I think it was your debut in the role here with Tony conducting back in 2015. When you return to a role, how do you bring something new to it? How do you stop it just being a kind of retread?
Well, I think it happens automatically if you don't do an opera over and over again and have it very often in your schedule.
Yeah.
Then you just naturally mature, both vocally and also your brains. And that changes also your attitude. It changes your look on things, and I think that even in the exact same production that I did 9 years ago, was it something like that? It is somehow different because I see life in a different way than I did 9 years ago, and I think that should mirror also in my interpretation of any part, everywhere. I think it's not always, obviously, because there are parts that I'm then definitely too old to do, but parts where you see, I mean, it can only be the naivety of a very, very young person that can actually ratify the actions that are taken on stage. But in this case, you see, I mean, he's, yes, he might be a dreamer first dreamer of the revolution, but then he soon also the real character back then in France. He was not super happy, put it mildly. I think he was writing after the revolution, starting to write terrible things about the Jacobiner, I think is and this tendency. And when they got to power, he was on the list, and eventually was caught. And I think beheaded 2 days prior to the Robespierre's end. So it was very close, but nevertheless,
Yeah,
he didn't make it.
I mean,
But
yeah.
so it's always interesting to play a hero or play someone that stands up for his ideas and for his ideals. And it's even more so if you have it accompanied by such beautiful music, and you know that this is actually a real story.
Well,
You see, that brings something
I wanted
extra.
to just to finish that point. I mean, as a performer approaching a role, what difference does it make to you when you know you're playing a real person as opposed to a fictional character? Does that make a difference to the way you approach it?
Well, I think it depends very much on the opera, on the libretto, whether they've been truthful to the story, or whether they've twisted it around and you try to somehow to add, let's say, the real story, even if it's only between the lines.
Yeah.
But in this case, I think it's. I mean, of course, we don't know about this relationship or anything, but
it's
really
been,
true.
of course, it's romanticized, yes.
Yeah, of course, it's romanticized, obviously, yes. But I mean, you see, the last aria he sings is supposedly actually one of his original poems, translated in Italian. So, I mean, he is really reading out his poetry. That's
Tony,
quite something.
You've touched a bit on the music, but I know, Jonas, you once said that this opera has the best hits all in one evening. But it's a lush soundscape, isn't it? I mean, I noted down revolutionary songs, 18th century dances, pastoral music, music for the aristocracy, music for servants. It's all there, isn't it?
I said that already.
I know. I'm really trying to tempt you to give us a few more little examples.
Well, I think you just actually pinpointed it. This use of sort of the people's music is very important, because there's a lot of aristocratic music and there's a lot of high romantic music. So, and I think all these colors play a part in the overall dramaturgy, because he goes from one to the other, and I think that keeps the audience on its toes and makes for a colourful soundscape also.
Yeah. Jonas, how physically demanding of your voice is it?
Well, it's, as we would say, a hell of a sing. But, you know, I mean, I think I wouldn't change my opinion in saying it's so gorgeous. I mean, you have La Mamma Morta, which is one of the most important soprano arias in the Italian repertoire, famous for recordings by Callas and so on. Really, really, I mean, an iconic piece. You have Nemico della Patria. I mean, it's one of the 3, 4, 5 baritone arias that you would say this is one of the anchor pieces of baritones. And you have well, I mean, you could count it's 4 arias. I mean, because in second act this long thing which is called duet is actually an aria accompanied by Rouget, and
for
these,
you,
yeah, for me, yeah, and these 2. I mean, really, really beautiful duets. I mean, the first one already in second act with Maddalena, but then the last one, Vicino a te. I mean, this is just. I mean, it usually brings the house down because it's just. I mean, it's just written in a way you cannot help it. It's just amazing.
The thing is that Giordano, you know, I spoke about Wagner before, but of course, you have Verdi, who's, you know, looming in the background, and of course, what Giordano is doing, taking also from Ponchielli, who wrote in '76, wrote his La Gioconda, and developing along Verdi lines the declamatory delivery, big voices, recitatives are as important as the arias, and dramaturgically very, very non-decorative, to the point, and very pushing the story forward, and very, 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 very human. But the capacity to write these lines, these melodies, which Jonas was just talking about. I mean, the melodies are also spectacular because of their approach to the high notes. There's the way they're approached is thrilling, really, and that takes somebody who knows what he's doing. You know, the word slancio, which implies a certain rum, is made for an opera like this.
Am I right, the chorus plays a key role in this opera as well?
Well, the chorus, actually, when you add up the amount of chorus music, it's not very much.
Right.
But, you know, when they scream Robespierre's name, and, you know, and they list all the people that are in the parade of judges and ministers and all that, and the orchestra playing a big march tune, it's thrilling stuff. But it's not a chorus opera.
Okay.
It's very much a soloist's opera, and using the traditional trio of tenor, soprano, and baritone.
Yeah. Jonas, a word about the staging, because David McVicker's staging is spectacular, isn't it? Does that help, or does that sometimes hinder you as a singer?
No, I would say, you see, I mean, fortunately, we have this beautiful projection here, and Tony was mentioning before that it's not that much of a Verismo opera because of the theme, but of course, I mean, it starts in the aristocracy, and then it goes all the way down to the darkness of the dark side, let's say, of the revolution. And I think one of the reasons why he wasn't diving in so much was because he had some failures also in his operatic career, Giordano, with operas that were too much into the real life and the misery of people in southern Italy, and that was not something that was very popular in Italy to be seen in that time. But here, I think one can say that a Verismo opera should be played the way it's supposed to be. And with Chénier, fortunately, we have an anchor, the French Revolution, and it's so much into it, you see. I mean, they're playing the Marseillaise and everything. So, I mean, you cannot say, oh, this is actually China 1974 or something. You can't do that because it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Because it's so concrete into this time frame that you probably cannot do it completely different. Well, you probably will see it somewhere, I'm sure about it. No, but so having said that, still, I mean, I'm very happy because you see, with David, you always have productions that are in period, but that are very truthful, and you can see the human being and the interaction is very very well prepared. It's not just decoration and costumes, and then some people are standing here and there. It's the real thing, I think, and it's more cinematographic approach than just something that you can only see from a wide angle.
Look, your passion and enthusiasm for it, I mean, I can't wait to see it, and I'm sure I speak for everybody. It sounds like it's going to be thrilling. We'll return to it, but I did want to, since I've got you here, just ask you a few questions, perhaps turning the clock back. Tony, starting with you, I'm just fascinated to know how you came to be a conductor, how you came to find opera, because I know your father was a singer.
And a voice teacher, yeah.
And a voice teacher. So how did you, I mean, were you in love with music as a small child? How did it happen?
Well, I was encouraged to take piano lessons, and I wasn't really very interested, but I did it, and then I sort of became interested. But then I developed a facility, and by the age of 10, I was accompanying my father's voice students, and he would do the half an hour of vocal exercises and technical things, and then I would play the songs or the little Italian art songs or pop songs or arias or any manner of thing. And I learned to sight read at a very young age.
Yeah.
So I did that with him for 12 years. So I would either come home from school or already when, because we were living here then, I would get on the bus after school and go to Marylebone High Street, right there, Blandford Street. There were studios there where my father worked, and we'd work until like 9 o'clock at night. That was every day.
After school?
After school.
Yeah.
So then we moved to America, and I continued to do that. The conducting came much later, and I never harbored a burning desire, like many people do. Oh, I just want to conduct. I was very reluctant, but other people said, oh, you play the piano like an orchestra. You have to conduct. And these were people who had experience singing in Germany, who had been working in the German opera houses, and that coincided with a time where I felt very strongly that I didn't want to only be associated with Italian music. By that time I was working at the New York City Opera. I was playing, for many singers, but I wanted to learn German, so I came back to Europe, different places. I started out in Barcelona at the Liceo as a pianist, where I played mainly the German and French repertoire, but not only. And so I did, Ariadne and Salome and Elektra and the Flying Dutchman and things like that. But at the time, I got an audition to get a job at the Frankfurt Opera, and there I was given a job, and I was lucky enough to have a sort of semi-season where I could work there, because I had this, I was busy in Barcelona. I also had a job at the Lyric Opera of Chicago. So I was working in Chicago, in Frankfurt, and in Barcelona, always as a pianist. Yeah. But I had gotten a couple of chances to conduct with one of the singers who said, you play the piano like this. And in Scandinavia, I got a chance to do some concerts. I was terrible, but as a coach, by that time, I was quite a seasoned coach, and I knew how to tell people what to do and how to do it, and that I just did the same thing in front of the orchestra. And that's kind of what I do today. And at a certain point, it sort of took over. And I could see, because though I had a lot of technical deficiencies, I was very strong in what is really the important thing in opera, and that's the drama and how the music supports it, and getting the right tempos and the right breathing for the singers that you're working with. Also, the ability to work with the stage director.
Yes. That's so interesting, Tony. I didn't know so much about that. Jonas, how did you come to be a singer? Because I think your parents, your father was an insurance broker, your mother was a kindergarten teacher. Am I right, though, they had a piano in every room?
No, not in every room.
I thought that line was too good to be true, but you did have a piano at home.
No. No. I know in all our homes, let's say, from my parents, and both sides of the grandparents, everyone had a piano because everyone played, and and there was music playing 24/7, whether from LPs or these big tapes or even from the radio. Yeah. That it would never stop. So I always had a tune on my lips, and just like my little son now, I mean, he can't stop singing. It's just so funny when you see him. He's playing something or painting, or so, he's constantly singing, constantly, and singing melodies that he has never heard of, or with words, adding words that just pop out of his head, and it's similar to what people told me about myself. So I was always singing. I always had music in me, but I never actually, maybe similar to Tony, I never had the idea to become a proper singer. I mean, make it as a profession, let's put it that way. I never would have missed, wanted to miss that making music, but you see, I started studying math because I thought that's what I need to do, and I was very fascinated by physics and chemistry and math, all that. Not so much the languages somehow, because that seemed to be normal. I mean, I had Latin and ancient Greek at school, and obviously English and some Italian. But Italian was there from the youth on, because my parents were so much in love with that country that I spent a lot of time in Italy, and and so. After 2 years math, I realized that's not going to be it. For the sitting in front of a desk and just calculating this and that is not really. So I said, well, the only other thing that I have at the moment is I need to just see the outcome of studying singing, because it is a high risk, and we have always these discussions with the young singers that ask you whether they should actually go for it, they should do it, and the answer is always the same. If you really feel the urge, if you feel the need, if it's burning inside, you have to try it, but you have to also set a limit, a point where you think, if I don't reach that in the matter of, I don't know how many years, 5 years, 8 years, 10 years, I'll do something else, because then, unfortunately, there comes the point where it's too late, and you spend so much time doing it, and with no proper or satisfying result. But I think it would be a big mistake to not try it, because for the rest of your life, you're going to regret it.
Yeah. But how useful has the maths turned out to be?
Well, yeah. No.
But you like gadgets, right? You're good with fixing things.
Oh,
also.
yes,
yeah.
I love that. This is kind of cooking and fixing. These are my hobbies. No, I do proper things too. I mean, like hiking or sailing or something. But actually, it's funny. I mean, you see, I just moved into an apartment here, and on day 2, I was already at Richard Dyer's to get some tools, because I needed to fix the door. It's just, I can't help it. I just have to do it.
Do you have time for hobbies, Tony?
Well, I like to eat, and I love to drink. So, but I love to watch TV. You know, I mean, I don't have much time to do that, but I enjoy watching television. And now you know, what's on TV, what with Netflix and all the others, and Apple TV and Disney and all that. There's so much really good stuff to watch.
Yeah.
And so it's not just, you know, becoming a couch potato. But I would, obviously in my spare time, I would like to read more. But sometimes, you know, right in this period where I've been finishing here, but you know, but it's very intense at the moment. I'm designated at the LSO, and though not having the position officially, I've done 7 programs with them and 2 big tours and 4 recordings and stuff. You know, it's been an enormous season with the LSO. Plus, I, together with Jonas, we were in Salzburg at the Easter Festival with Santa Cecilia Orchestra and Chorus doing La Gioconda. So, and guest conducting around. My mind has been really, really just working on overload.
Yeah.
And with a lot of new music, and I love to study. I really do. But then sometimes, you know, to have an intellectual pursuit when you need to rest, I just rather, you know, just veg out.
Yes.
If you like, you know, yeah.
I think you're allowed. We'll come on to the LSO, the London Symphony Orchestra, perhaps a little later. I wondered if you could both take us inside the first day of rehearsals. Tony, here you are, perhaps with Andrea Chénier, and what happens? Take us inside that room, because we don't get to ever come in there.
Well, I mean, what happens is you're asking, is the tenor going to show up? That's the first thing. Has
the soprano learned his part?
I can't say that. But no. So usually you start out with musical rehearsals. Singers.
Oh no! Don't get me wrong. I was not talking about this production.
No. But usually you sit around, you sit and you go through musically, or if in a revival, sometimes you'll do the musical rehearsal without the staging, just before you're going to stage it.
Okay.
And then, and especially this is a piece that we've done before, and we have a shorthand, Jonas and I, and we're on that same wavelength. So, of course, even a show that has been a reality twice already at Covent Garden. You know, it's been several years. Last time it was done in 19, I think. So now we're at 24. It needs to be put together. There are different people, a lot of different people in the smaller roles. A lot of the chorus is new. Certainly a lot of the orchestra has never played it before.
Right.
So, you know, you're not really able to cut corners. Had we done the piece last season and it was fresher and everybody, it would be different. It would be a different system. But we don't do that. We bring the pieces later. So there's these initial rehearsals take time, and everybody has to find the rhythm. Once the musical rehearsals and the staging rehearsals are working together, it's like a kind of a dance almost, then things start to take shape. And I'm looking always, well, of course, the musical and linguistic precision has to be there. We have to be together. We have to know, we have to agree on tempi. But it's also, I'm very interested myself about how the singers look. What, you know, is this scene working? Does it, you know, I try to step outside, and especially in a traditional production. Because in a traditional production, which in many ways this is, as Jonas said, it's very difficult to transpose it into another time. It's impossible. They're talking about, you know, the French Revolution, right? Therefore, the acting must be very, very convincing. It's much easier to act in a psychological space or an abstract space. Because it's really up to you, and you're already in a grungy, more, you know, you're up for acting in a different way, in a more modern style. In this, there are stylized things, but the meaning of the words must come across, and it must be in the eyes, and it must be in the diction, and it must be in the presence. So you know, I mean, you can ask Jonas this week, not so much with him, but with, you know, I'm telling people how to move and what position to sit in. And although it's supposed to be none of my business, I'm not the stage director. But if the spy sits like this and is surveying his territory and who he's going to go after, it's much more interesting than if he sits like this. You understand?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
It sounds like,
Or was it today? They sing "Niun si muova," and he said, "Wait! They should freeze."
yeah,
they
and
cannot
nobody
just
moves.
all- nobody
yeah,
moves.
nobody moves, or nobody is moving, and there was all movement on the
Yeah.
stage. And so those kinds of things sounds banal and rudimentary, but those are things that need to be in order,
Yeah.
and especially in a traditional production.
How interesting. Jonas, I wanted to ask you, because you've talked about the shorthand, you've talked about, between the two of you, the fact you're musically on the same page. I wonder, though, is that ever a challenge in the sense that, are you almost too kind of respectful of each other's opinions?
Not
that
at all. Are you kidding?
You're
Right.
happy to speak freely.
Go on, your turn. We've made so many, the thing is that we've made so many records together. And that's a very, very interesting process because besides, you know, we've made a lot of, quite a few aria albums or duet albums and things like that. And when you're taking the main, well, the hits, if you like, and you're working out the aria, you become very, very close in collaboration. I can't tell you how close, because you're, first of all, you're repeating things, but you're aiming for something. You're aiming for a white heat that you must try to achieve together, all the while being precise in the musical stuff, in the linguistic stuff, and you want something that people want to hear. But it's through that process over many years, not to mention the full operas that we've recorded. The respect, and we've been in the trenches. We know what this business is about. We know what the public's expecting. We know how to make records. We know that that today opera needs to be. We need to sell opera because people are saying that, you know, there are some people who think opera is not worthy of its place in society, and so the intensity that we bring to it, the energy, the talent, is very, very important. So we know that. We don't even have to talk about it.
Okay. You must have co-stars that occasionally you don't get on with, though. I mean, I don't want to put you in an uncomfortable position, but I just wonder how one navigates that. I suspect it's perhaps trickier in the rehearsal room than it is when you're actually on stage. I don't know.
No, because you see, also on stage, once you're performing, you have to fully rely on each other. Because you see, you cannot have somebody unpredictable doing things that are awkward or certainly not what you agreed on together beforehand, because it's distracting and it's difficult. That doesn't mean that we don't improvise. That's not the point.
Yeah.
I'm, of course, within the limits of what you can do without harming the musical impact, let's say, because you still, I mean, obviously, as we had the discussion today about playing a love couple that obviously talks to each other, but in the same moment, you know that Umberto Giordano's put an enormous amount of orchestra down there, and if we just talk to each other, that just doesn't project enough.
Yeah,
so we
the
need to
singers are
fake
singing face
and
to face.
be side by side, cheek to cheek, in order to
Yes.
in order to achieve both. And if that, for instance, doesn't work, because someone just, like you see, I mean, there's stories, I mean, famous stories about people biting into each other's ears for not stopping the high note at the point that they agreed on and stuff like that. So I this is what I have not witnessed. But yes, of course, it is sometimes easy and sometimes it's less easy. But I mean, you see, we're all professionals, and I believe at least we're all there for the success of the entire thing, and that's also one of the great things with Tony, that you always see that he's working for the big picture.
Yeah.
He's not working for the spotlight on his throne, but for the entire show, and that's very important. And as long as we all respect that, I think you have to come along with everybody, because you cannot just, I mean, maybe then next time they ask you to do another production with that person, you unfortunately are busy. But I would never refuse to work with someone.
No, I understand. I mean, you talk about, Tony, it's all about the show, but for you, Tony, it is also about opera as a form. You've just touched on that. I mean, are you concerned about the future for the art form?
There are several issues. The costs, which have always been a challenge for opera through the ages, have become extreme nowadays. Just the costs of materials, costs of building things, the costs, and so forth, and the cost of just living in this city. You know, it's tremendous. You know, and we are in a moment where the arts are somehow not seen or not given the importance. They're not seen to be as important as I think they should be in terms of the education of our young people. It's a subject I've spoken a lot about recently. To me, it's a no-brainer. I mean, if you want to build a creative mind, and we need people who can think creatively going forward, there's no question about that, well, then it can't just be arithmetic and reading and writing and you know, and those subjects. There has to be something that unleashes the fantasy and unleashes this creative aspect. And music and other arts, of course, open up the mind to, you know, and why this can't be seen. And the worry is that at the same time we're being asked to include youngsters and we're, you know, to do as much educational work as we possibly can to get the message out. And diversity plays such a huge role, and underprivileged people need to share in what we do. But we're not expert in that. We have educational departments. But it's very, very difficult if the government is not pushing that message from the bottom, which means from the schools. I'm not saying that classical music has to be taught in schools. There has to be some kind of exposure to music in general, how music functions, maybe even to read music a little bit, but the history of music, how to listen to certain music. But also there's a history of popular music now that kids should know about. It's not all music is disposable, and I think that even in the popular genre, there's classic music. So whether it's classic or it's classical, I think that kids need to know about that. Yeah. It's a fantastic thing, and I think can be inspired. Yeah. Worries me is that, you know, when you see what's happening with English National and Welsh National, that these companies are really in trouble. And you know, where's the young talent? You know, we're talking about a country that has produced so many great singers and so many great musicians. Where are these people going to learn their craft? Where these, you know, not to mention all the infrastructure around these institutions, the businesses that count on people going to the opera, the restaurants, you name it, all that stuff. This is it's an economically very important. Also, the number of jobs that places like ours create. It's not just about the art; it's about the money too.
Yeah. Jonas, I mean, do you feel optimistic about the future? I mean, you touched on earlier how difficult it is to become a singer anyway. Is it, if you were starting out now, or perhaps for anybody listening today, is it harder?
Well, the examples Tony's mentioning, of course, they don't stop in the UK, and you cannot. I believe, or most people cannot be trained to become a singer and then start at the Royal Opera House. You see, I mean, you need certain steps in order to try out, to get enough confidence, then to be able to keep your nerves once you're really in front of the crowd. And these steps, unfortunately, are getting more difficult to find. And that's why it's one of the reasons why I believe it has become more difficult. When you look also at the recording industry, for instance, I'm the last generation of singers who had the chance, or musicians actually, classical musicians who had the chance to have a proper record contract and a recording career. Everything after me, people that are 10 years younger already, they have a completely different approach for certain reasons also. I mean, of course, financially it's different, but it's also you see the record companies don't sell these amounts of recordings anymore. Because they cannot afford to push someone and make a, I don't know, worldwide entertainment tour in order to get the name into the crowd. It's just it has become very, very, very difficult. Yes, there are other ways. Obviously, I know that there are people who. Through the new media online, whether it's TikTok or something, they build up a name and have followers and everything, but it's not the same. So yes, it has become more and more difficult. It's not going to die out, that's for sure. I think it's way too beautiful, and there are way too many people who left their heart in it. It's not going to die, but it is difficult, and to just run a place like this is a luxury, that is true, but a luxury for a reason, and it's part of our culture. You see, I always say, you see, when you talk about what the country is all about and why these people are called, in this case, Europeans. You see, we have the same history, we have the same culture. That's it. We don't have the same languages, but I mean, at least these two things. And amongst the culture is maybe food and stuff like that, or fashion. But of course, there's the arts. And the long history of the arts. Yeah. And if you extinct that, it also makes it more and more difficult to keep the society together. Yeah. You see, because this is let's say, the umbrella under which we define ourselves, being Europeans.
Tony, I want to ask you a personal question, if I may. As you prepare to bid farewell to this place as music director, not forever, how tough is it? How tough will it be?
Well, when I leave here, it'll be 34 years that I've been a music director of one house or another. Ooh. And to be without a theater is kind of unthinkable, but it was my decision. But it'll be a real wrench to leave here, because this place has offered me the conditions to work, and a family of people, musicians, technicians, soloists, that has been perfect for me. So I won't find that anywhere else. It'll be different, but I'm not looking for another opera house. I'm looking for an opportunity to only have one job and not two at the same time at the moment. And so yeah, you know, you ask me that question after I've conducted my last performance here, then and in the autumn when I'm not here, and you know, at the end of August, like I always am, and I'm not coming into the theatre, and that'll be weird.
Yeah.
It'll be very strange for me.
Yeah. You're heading, as you said, to the London Symphony Orchestra, your new role as chief conductor. I'm sure there's much you're looking forward to. I wonder though, when you, I mean, especially as you say, you've been associated with this place for so many years, are there nerves? Are there nerves about going somewhere new, or because you've been guest conductor in different, you know, places all over the world, maybe it doesn't work like that?
Well, I'm going into a situation where the rhythm of work is very different. Although this is full on here, and I've often done 2 productions, sometimes even 3 at one time at the end of last season with Werther, Trovatore, and Wozzeck, you know, one on top of another, and that was plus the coronation. I mean, that was a time, let me tell you. But there, instead of, you know, rehearsing 3 weeks and then putting the show on stage, or in a new production 6 weeks and then putting it on stage, there in a week I will have done certainly 2 programs and maybe a recording also in 1 week. Then the following week I will do another program, and then we're off on tour. You know, I will do audio visual work, so the program changes. The going from one thing to another is it's quite alarming, the quickness of it. Now, I get proper rehearsals. I'm not throwing anything together, but I have to have a whole chunk of repertoire ready to go, bang, like this. And then, you know, when you go on tour, the rhythm of, you know, I just did an 11 concert tour, and altogether with the London concerts, it was 17 concerts in 25 days. That's a lot, no?
That's a lot.
That's a different rhythm than here.
Yeah.
And it suits me somehow, but I've got to get my aging body now, you know, sort of trained for that kind of thing. But I'm, you know, because the visual element, none of that is there, or rarely, you know, it's just me and the music, me and the musicians and the music. So it's more concentrated, and therefore the level of exhaustion is less.
Yes, okay.
Because I'm, you know, here I'm sure I'm worried about bar 5, and will I, you know, am I doing the right thing with my elbows and stuff like this? Of course. But I'm also, you know, does he look right? Is the curtain on time? Boom, bang, bang. You know, does she know that part of the duet? You know, is he going to come in on time? Is that cute? All that stuff, you know, weighs on me, and I think about it. And, you know, of course, and the extra weight of this being my last production as music director, you know, you want it to be good, you want it to be a celebration also. So that's probably why I needed a break from that pressure and these 2 jobs at once. You know, because for 18 years I had Santa Cecilia in Rome and this job, and I needed that because I needed a symphonic outlet, something that would develop me in a different way. And that, without my knowing it at the time, it prepared me for the London Symphony, of course.
Yeah. My observation is you're not going to be watching a lot of TV, but
no.
We'll see. Jonas, are there any roles on your wish list that you haven't done yet? Maybe that you could do with Tony?
Let's see. Well, there's only maybe a handful left. You see, in the Italian repertoire, there's not much. Fedora maybe would be something. I mean, Palestrina. I haven't done.
That's amazing opera by Fitzner. That would be perfect for you.
And then you see, Britain has written more than just Peter Grimes. And I've never ever touched a Russian repertoire probably because I'm lazy, or I just didn't want to spend too much time in learning and spend the time with my family. But there are parts like German in
The Queen of
Queen of
Spades,
Spades. It's just I have to do that at some point. So, but it's not really much. It's not that I'm saying, oh my God.
No. But
Yeah, but he's going to be the boss of. Come on, tell him.
Oh
him.
yeah.
Tell him he's.
Yeah, I just I took over a job of the general manager of a festival in Tyrol, Austria, in Erl, the Tiroler Festspiele Erl, and it's amazing. You see, it came to me last year like out of the blue, and I've been asked whether I would be interested, and I said certainly not. And then I went there, and I saw the place, and I really, really have to say I fell in love with it. And I said, oh yeah, I have to do it, because you see, there are two houses. One older one built originally for Passion of Christ plays. One of those old villages that has won the second plague, that they would play every, I don't know, in this case it's I think 7 years, the Passion of Christ on stage with everyone, the whole. So this means also this will be next year. So also now I was just there. The whole village is already growing beards and everything. And it's acoustically a beautiful house, all wooden. And then a sponsor has built a second one, a proper opera house with everything, with just 750 seats, but with an unbelievably good acoustic. So you have two houses there, sitting in the middle of nowhere. The cows are on the meadow just in front. It's just crazy, and the mountains with the snow white tops on it behind. It's a holiday place, and just with some crazy people who do music there and opera.
And you.
And me, yes, now me. I mean, I'm not intending to move there, and I'm not intending to turn down my operatic career at all. But it is something very, very interesting to look into. And I have to say, I had so much fun preparing the first season, which we announced about 4 weeks ago. And now I'm like, you see, this child that has bought the toys, and they're still wrapped, and I'm waiting for Christmas or birthday or whatever you would call it, to finally open them up. So I can't wait for the day that I can see all this fall into place. Yeah, it's a little hobby, because I was really, that's so good to see. I found myself on the couch watching television all the time, and then I decided to do something else.
So that's in my future too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
There you go.
I just don't see either of you really chilling, but there we go. Tony, I suppose I want to close by, again, perhaps putting you on the spot. I mean, you've conducted more than 700 performances here, 60 different operas. I'm going to cast you away on a desert island, and you have a TV, so you'll be able to sit and watch it, but you're allowed one of those operas. You're allowed one of those operas. Which is, it doesn't have to be your favorite, but which has been the kind of career highlight for you that you look back on and think, yeah.
That's a terribly unfair question.
Sorry.
Yeah.
You can have
I
one.
can say I would take The Ring, only because you get a lot.
You get more more bang for your buck.
You get more for your money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know.
You're going back through them all now, aren't you, in your mind's eye?
You know, it's funny because my whole life, I've been asked that question, of course, a million times, but I can never answer it properly, because I've geared myself to be completely in love with what I'm doing, the show that I'm doing at the moment. At the moment, right now, Chénier is like everything to me, you know, and you know, but of course, when you're in front of the orchestra conducting Otello, I mean, you know, Marriage of Figaro, you know, Die Meistersing.
Meistersing, I was just going to say.
I mean, my goodness, you know. So I'm not going to answer your question.
No. I think you're allowed to. Look, I know you're in the midst of rehearsals. I know you've got your first rehearsal tomorrow. Is it first run through in costume?
Yeah. Tomorrow morning run through costume, and afternoon Sitz, the so-called
Yeah,
Sitz.
where we put the singers together with the orchestra, no staging. Yeah.
Okay, so therefore I'm thinking I really ought to let you go.
Yeah.
But I think everybody here, everybody watching at home would like to thank you both. It's been amazing to talk to you. All the very best. Thank you for all the joy you have brought us over all the years and many, many more years to come. Ladies and gentlemen,
Thank you.
Jonas Kaufmann and Sir Antonio Pappano. Thank you, Jonas. Yeah, thank you. You wanted to, yeah. Well, that is it for tonight's Insight, I'm afraid. But you can, of course, book tickets to see Andrea Chénier, conducted by Antonio Pappano, on the main stage here at the Royal Opera House from the 30th of May. You can also watch it in cinemas on the 11th of June, and there are encore screenings on the 16th of June. For now, though, I just want to thank all of our audience here in the Claw studio. I want to thank all of you who've been watching online from around the world. It's been a pleasure to have you with us for this very special Insight supported by Rolex. And from me, till the next time, bye-bye.